You're listening to Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran Podcast.
Now introducing your host of Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran, the one-man show, Brian Roof.
Hey, what's going on, friends and fam? Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another great day, another great interview. Before we get started, I would like to do a little shout out to podcastguest.com. I would like to thank you guys for adding me in your directory and sharing my podcast so that I could get some amazing guests. That's exactly how I found my next guest. And let me tell you, I got kind of bombarded on that, and I was like, whoa, okay, there's a lot on the list. So I was super pleased with it. I scheduled a lot of podcasts, and now because of that, we're going to start doing 2 episodes a week. We're going to start dropping an episode on Mondays and on Thursdays. So be ready to be caught up with all the episodes. We're getting close to 100 interviews, guys. That's absolutely crazy. It's been one heck of a ride, and I want to thank all of you guys. I appreciate all the love and support so far. And let's go ahead and not make our next guest wait any longer. Our next guest is a Marine. Hell yeah. We love our Marines, right? I wonder why. But he also didn't stop after, being a Marine, decided to start a nonprofit. So we're going to get to learn all about Marshall Spring. What's going on, brother?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you so much for joining. I'm absolutely excited to learn all about you, brother, and hear about your Marine Corps experience. What made you decide to join the Marine Corps, and then what you decided to do afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I guess I'll just jump into it. I joined the Marine Corps right after 9/11 and became an explosive detection dog handler and spent some time in Okinawa, 29 Palms, and Ramadi, Iraq. So I really got to see the best of what the Marine Corps has to offer.
Heck yeah. So where'd you grow up and stuff, man?
I grew up in a small town in Oregon called Ashland, just about 5 minutes over the California border on I-5.
Okay. And born and raised out there pretty much?
Yeah, I was actually born in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and then moved to Ashland when I was 3 and was raised out there.
All right. And so what made you decide to go talk to that good old recruiter?
Yeah, it's funny. I went and talked to the military recruiters right after getting out of high school. And I just opted out. I decided that the military path wasn't going to be something I was into. And then 9/11 happened. I turned 18 August 31st, and then 11 days later, 9/11, right? And I just at the time I kind of thought it was my generation's Pearl Harbor. I remember right after it happened, this older gentleman that I knew, my mom actually worked for him. He pulled me aside and he was like, "Look, if you're going to become a conscientious objector, you need to set that in right now, so that they don't draft you." And it was funny, that conversation. I just kind of felt like that was bullshit, and that if my country's going to war, it's on me to sign up. So I walked in and joined the Marine Corps pretty much right after. And yeah, it was a pretty wild experience. Definitely different from my upbringing and what I had been doing up to that point.
Now, it is a pretty unique thing to do, bro. Like, I mean, when I joined, it was the year 2000, really peacetime. It's a whole nother thing when we are, at war with someone, and we definitely had a lot of Americans decide to go ahead and sign up. Now, when you went to go see the recruiter, did you notice that they seemed like there was a lot of people doing kind of the same thing, or not so much in your town?
Yeah, not so much in my town. As far as I'm aware, there were 3 of us that
Okay.
joined.
Nice.
Yeah, the recruiter was one town over. I think they're having better luck with the other communities, but where I grew up, it was an artist community, and joining the military just kind of wasn't part of everyone's vibe.
Right. Yeah, I got you. Now, when you went to boot camp and stuff, now I gotta imagine boot camp had to probably have a different tone, after 9/11. Prior to 9/11, probably, obviously everybody was still training, but there wasn't like something really going on. Now, boot camp, I imagine, was probably even more intense, in some degrees because they're like probably telling you guys this whole time it's live. You're going to be going to war. You want to talk about your experience while you're in boot camp?
I don't have anything to compare it to because I didn't go prior to, right, and so I only have my one little envelope of experience. But yeah, they definitely were making it crystal clear to us that we were in the pipeline to head over to the Middle East at one point or another. And yeah, I think everyone that I was there with was there for that. So yeah, I don't have anything to compare it to.
Now, when you went to go see the recruiter, did you have an idea of kind of what you wanted to do, or did you kind of let him kind of sell you the path that they wanted you to go through?
I wanted to be a medic, and then they informed me Marine Corps doesn't have medics, right?
Yeah, you got to go Navy.
And then so they were like, well, military police would be kind of similar to that. And I wasn't super interested in military police. And but then he would start going down the list of specializations, right? And so they have, like investigations and uh, s- CRT, SRT. Man, I kind of forgot all these acronyms, but like this,
Right.
the equivalent
So
of a
many.
SWAT team, right? I think it's CRT, Critical Response Team. I think is what it was. Anyway, so he's going down this list, and then he says canine. I'm like, hold up. You're saying that I can be in the Marine Corps and I can have a Marine Corps issue dog? And he's like, yeah, that's something we do. I was like, all right, send me for that. So they sent me to military police school. The canine piece wasn't guaranteed at all. I had to kind of earn my way to that. And but with a little bit of luck and some effort, I did get the opportunity to go to canine school, and then I had a dog. So that was pretty awesome.
Nice. Now, let's talk more about that canine piece. I mean, that's got to be kind of unique. And how long did you actually get to have the dog?
So in Okinawa, I had one dog for a year, and then I went over to 29 Palms, and then I had that dog for I think a little over 2 years.
Nice. Now, how does that training go, man? Is it pretty intense, or is it constant training?
So the dog thing is the initial school is like 3.5 months, and it is on an Air Force base. So coming out of boot camp to combat training to MP school, which love them or hate them, MP school is actually kind of a little more on the difficult side. Um, and then going into a school run by the Air Force was a big shift, kind of in the more leisurely direction.
Right.
So
You're like,
I'm
whoa.
not gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
A little different.
it was there was a lot to learn because you're learning how to communicate with the different species, right? At the end of the
Sure.
day,
Yeah.
but it was not intense. It was not anything super
That
difficult or gnarly at
you're
all.
used to. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool though.
And then when you get to the fleet and you get your dog, then you have the responsibility of continuing the training, improving your dog, improving your skills, and because you can do things like at the schoolhouse everything is on leash, right? And then as you get more familiarity with your dog and you have more skills, then you can work off leash and just use like hand commands instead of voice commands. And so there's like a ways to increase your abilities with your team.
Now, in terms of housing the dog, do you get to take the dog home at night, or does that dog go to like a kennel and then you get it is it like a shift that you have like shifts with the dog, or is it 24/7 your dog?
Yeah, so it's not like a police dog. where you get to take them home. They do stay in the kennel, and you show up in the morning and pull your dog and do some training, maybe do some work, and then at the end of the day, you put your dog up.
You
So
straight
you
up a
are
government issue, man.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, it
Yeah.
has a serial number tattooed on the inside of its ear.
Oh shit. Okay.
So yeah, so when you get to base, you get a rifle, a pistol, and a dog. Um, so you do work with the same dog all the time. It's not like you can just swap it out and
Swap
grab a
them out,
different dog
right?
or anything like that. But no, you don't take them home. It's not like a police dog in that way.
Now, typically, what are the ages when they already hand them over to you guys? I mean, obviously, by the time they're in your hand, there's probably a level of training they've already gone through, or they like straight up brand new, and you got to teach them everything.
Now there's a whole separate group. It's a different MOS of individuals down in Texas for the Air Force, and there's a Marine, Army, Navy, Air Force down there that train up dogs for their branches. And so yeah, you get a basically trained dog, and then you get to step up their training as you get them.
Dang. Okay. Well, so now, in terms of deployments, did you end up having to deploy with the dogs and do all that kind of stuff, or did you stay more stateside?
Yeah, yeah, we had the opportunity to hang out in Ramadi, Iraq, for a while, and took a couple trips to Fallujah.
And you took the dog the whole everywhere you went, pretty much.
Yeah, I was pretty useless without my dog because I can't smell bombs. He can. So yeah, my whole purpose was keeping the dog alive and directing him toward where to sniff for a bomb, and then being able to identify his behavior change when he was detecting an explosive.
Now let's talk more about the stuff. I mean, was he a good dog? Was he pretty damn good at catching a lot of stuff? You guys were you guys able to catch a lot of things?
Yeah, we actually found quite a lot of material during our deployment. He was actually really good at it. Found a lot of stuff. Found some really unique explosives that up to that point hadn't really been captured, and that allowed EOD to analyze them and learn more about them. We found these. I think they were calling them plate charges, which that's kind of a general term for a type of explosive. So but that's the term that they assigned to this, and it was dug on underneath a highway or a road, and not like an MSR, like more of a secondary road, and its whole purpose was to flip over tanks, and because then the occupants can't get out, and, that's kind of a gnarly way to go. So we were able to capture one of those, and a lot of other stuff too. So saved a lot of lives. And what I liked about working with the explosives part piece was bombs hurt indiscriminately.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a lot of kids with missing limbs or scars from explosives. And so I wasn't just saving coalition members. I was removing bombs is good no matter who you are. We need less bombs in the world, and so I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I gotta imagine, dude. And now the thing with those dogs too, they got to be damn good enough to not get too close or on actually set a bomb off. I mean, you know, because that's a huge risk. I imagine when a dog goes and starts getting in piles or certain areas that, I mean, I imagine there's bad situations that the dog can actually set it off.
Yeah, certainly. So where I was operational, we didn't really have a problem with landmines, and those are typically triggered through pressure.
Sure, right.
So stepping on them or digging at them, stuff like that. So what we had to be careful of was whomever. A lot of these bombs had a spotter that was going to detonate them, also either remotely through radio or through a physically attached wire. And so the big concern for us was once we found an explosive, is someone sitting there waiting to blow it up in our faces. And so once he identified a bomb, we had to get off the X as quickly as possible, set up a cordon, and then decide how to deal with it. And we didn't have any kind of specialized armor or anything. like EOD has, you know, the whole bomb suit or robots. We were just walking up to it, pretty, you know, unprotected. And so I do have this one really acute memory where we found an explosive, and as soon as my dog found it, I remember seeing this wire getting pulled out of it, and it was kind of like snaked across the ground, and it just, you know, disappeared.
Mm.
And so through deduction, what had happened there was the spotter had tried to detonate it on us, and it failed. And so he pulled the wire so that we couldn't trace the wire back to him. So yeah, there was some pucker factor, you know, here and there for
Imagine,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Gosh damn. I mean, that's got to be intense, dude, because you know exactly when that dog alerts or something like, oh, it, you know, I got to imagine there's a level of uh adrenaline rush that comes with it, right? Like that dog alerting you to something you don't have no clue. The dog just has something under there. It could be, I'm sure, as little as a round, right? Because I mean, they could pick up ammunitions and stuff like that as well, right?
Yeah, they're trained on smokeless powder, which is the accelerant in bullets. So we found, you know, conventional weapons caches, ammunition, rifles, just through residue, as well as explosives.
Now, what's the typical service time for a dog? I mean, you know, or does that just matter? Is there a healthy, or is there a certain time that the Marine Corps is like, all right, we only get this many years out of a dog, and then we retire them.
Yeah, you know, they'll use them as long as they're useful. It is the Marine Corps at the end of the day.
Right,
And
run it to the ground, son.
yeah, 100%. So, you know, what I was in, I couldn't speak to what's happening now. I have no reason to think it's changed, but it
Sure,
certainly could have. But when I
right.
was in, um, you know, we had 10, 11, 12-year-old dogs. Um, and to answer your previous question, I kind of didn't get to. We get them around 3 years old, so you know they'll try and get close to a decade out of them.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Good, you know, good 10 years, and then, I mean, then I imagine some of these bigger dogs, though, you know, their lifespan's almost that long, right? I mean, 10 to 13 years. But I'm sure in the Marine Corps, them dogs are just everything's very regiment for them. You know, they probably every same day they get the same bowl at this, you know, the same spot.
Yeah, 100%. And the we use our dogs are they're considered dual certified, so they have the apprehension piece where you can send them on a person and they'll chase that person down and bite them and apprehend them. And then they have the detection piece where they either are detecting drugs or they're detecting bombs. So they're dual certified. So when a dog kind of reaches the end of its usefulness, it will be evaluated. And so if it's its nose that's going and it's no longer useful, maybe it can still do the attack work. Or if its, you know, back is busted or its hips are out or whatever, it can't be running around, maybe it can still do the smell work. And so that dog will go back to the schoolhouse and it'll train new handlers. So if it, you know, it can still sniff, it'll be on the sniff side of the house and it'll teach handlers how to do work in a detection dog, because the school is split halfway between each skill.
Now, do they treat these dogs with rank and stuff too? I mean, I know like when it comes to the mascot, that he's got, you know, they treat him like he's part of the Marine Corps. Like, so I mean, do they do the same thing with the service dogs?
They don't. The mascot does have rank. The dogs don't. I got my dog a collar, and I put a ribbon for every, you know, medal and ribbon that we earned together. I put
Sure.
that on
Oh,
that
cool.
collar for him,
Nice.
but that was far from official. The Marine Corps doesn't necessarily do anything like that. Like I said, it's a piece of serialized gear.
It's kind of sad, you know, because dogs have always been instrumental in helping do a lot of great things and protect a lot of lives, bro. Like you said, without those dogs, I mean, there's probably a lot of life that could have been lost. You know, so it's kind of crazy that they don't kind of treat them a little bit more as though they're part of I mean, I know they're a dog and stuff, but damn, they do a lot. They work, they're not just regular old dogs that get to sit on the bed all day and, you know, just get belly rubs all day long,
Yeah, and they dedicate their entire lives um, to serving us and our nation. And there's a day that commemorates them, and
Oh,
they've
that's
got some
good. Yeah.
statues. I was actually just out of the Pentagon a couple weeks ago, which is like the whole place is like a museum. It's actually a
Mhm.
really incredible building. And sure enough, they had a display case dedicated to military working dogs, and so there's some degree of reverence and respect, but they don't. I don't know. It's I hate to repeat myself, but at the end of the day, it's a piece of serialized gear. It's a piece of
Yeah.
equipment. It's a force multiplier. And as handlers, we are kind of expected to protect the equipment like you would anything else, but use it like a tool, not like a pet.
Right. They don't want you to sit there and get all super feely and attached to the dog. I'm sure, it's just like when it comes to getting married, right? They're like, if we didn't issue you a wife, you don't need one. Yeah. uh, but yeah, man. So you got any more stories about why you guys were deployed over there? You're muted, but oh, there you go. Oh, hold on, folks. He's on mute. There you
Sorry,
go.
I
No,
had a malfunction with my earbuds
no,
here.
you're good,
Do you
bro.
have any more stories? Uh, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I recently came across a stack of after action reports that were filed by several different staff sergeants and the like. And they described activities that I was involved in that I have no memory of, which is pretty interesting. So I actually I remember very little of my deployment. I did encounter some explosives that were detonated on me, and so I was the recipient of several TBIs during that deployment. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific you're curious about. I'm sure I could conjure up a memory, but nothing that comes to mind.
All right. Well, yeah, man. I mean, so how long were you actually deployed in all that in terms of deployment?
I think I was deployed over a little over 9 months, over 2004 and 2005.
Okay, and so once you ended up getting out, you know, uh, what did you end up doing with yourself? And did you find yourself? Uh, now I don't know. So when did you actually get out? What
I
was the
got
year?
out in 2006.
All right, 2006. So about you're about 2 years after me. Were they starting to talk about PTSD or anything yet at that point when you got out?
There was probably a little conversation around that. Um, I wasn't not in a way that I absorbed it or took it on and
Sure.
understood it.
Right.
Because I was definitely dealing with some shit that now given the hindsight it makes a lot of sense, but at the time I didn't really understand. Um, and it's I don't get this hear this being talked about very often, but the human brain is fully developed around 25, and in some cases a little bit later than that. I got out of the Marine Corps when I was 22, right?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
So,
Yep.
so
Same.
those formative experiences that happen prior to that have a huge impact on how that individual lives and interacts, and even their lifespan, and physical health and mental health. And so those those experiences, like everything I experienced in Iraq and even the training leading up to that and stuff, those are pretty impactful and traumatic on an organism. And so coming out of the Marine Corps, I was I was not prepared. Um, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was kind of twisting in the wind, and as a Marine, you don't really want to admit weakness. You don't want to admit that you don't have a plan.
Yeah.
You're always performing at 110%, and you're the most elite, you know,
Can't fail.
killer, badass, and everything else. And getting out and having to admit to yourself some weaknesses, and having to admit to yourself the impact of those experiences, that can be a huge struggle.
I couldn't agree with you more, bro. And it's when you're in your early 20s, right? You're still at that kind of invincible phase, and you're not really wanting to accept that you have something wrong with you, that you're broken, or and I wouldn't call it necessarily broken, or maybe you just you got some ailments that, because I think a lot of us when we got out in the early 2000s, um PTSD really wasn't acknowledged in it, or it was just starting to be acknowledged. And a lot of us, I when I got out, there was no explanation of it at all. I didn't know what the hell I was going through. But then I started collaborating and talking to others. I started realizing, like, oh shit, they're going through things too. And it's not like these things happened right away, right? Like, it was like time went by, and all of a sudden something would happen, and then next thing you know, you have this weird feeling through your body, and you're just like, whoa, what the hell just happened? And you can't explain it. It's just it's crazy because and also, when we get out, right, we're trying to go establish ourselves. We want to go be breadwinners. We want to go make that money, um, because that's kind of the culture we've grown up in, is that you're measured by success by your job and how much money you make and all those types of things. So when you're young and you're 20, your vision is on that kind of stuff. Like, oh, I just need to make money. You're not thinking about, gosh damn, I just went through all this shit. Just now I have separation from guys that I spent every day with and I was cool with and we could joke around with. And now we're out here, you know, on our own, and these people aren't funny to joke with, or they take things super serious, and you're just like, dang, culture shock. So then we go through a whole other world of culture shock. Holy shit, like fish out of water, because it doesn't matter if you only did 4 years in the Marine Corps or whatever. That stint of time, man, is impressionable. And like you said, when we're going through it, we're probably at a still very impressionable time, and we're still developing, right? And so now our mold is included in us being Marines. Like, what's funny is, like, it's when I talk to guys that are a little bit older that joined the Marine Corps when they got older, and it wasn't, right out of high school. I feel like their look on things are a lot different than the person that graduated high school and went right in. The perspective is a little bit different, based on the different interviews I've had. It's kind of crazy, but it's due to the different in the mindset, right? Like, those guys probably, after joining, that were more like 25, 26 years old, even though the Marine Corps starts to not want you at, close to that age. I think 27 in the Marine Corps or something, is the cutoff. But they want you to be impressionable, and they want you to be that way because you're going to go see stuff that the average human doesn't see, like on a day-to-day, and we don't see in our science class, right? Besides dissecting a frog or something. But we're just not prepped up for all that to actually see it. And then once the Marine Corps is done with you, man, it's sayonara. I remember once they all knew I was EASing, it wasn't worried about what I was doing no more. Whether I was training, but it was, hey, are you getting checked out? Make sure you're checking out. It's almost like they were like, couldn't wait to get your ass out once you decided you were done. Right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I heard this Army Ranger once give me an analogy that I think is pretty apropos for a lot of military experiences, and that is that the Ranger Battalion is a man running across a desert without water, and you are a water-soaked rag, and he's going to squeeze everything, every little bit out of you, and then toss you aside. He's, the analogy is about Ranger Bat, but I heard that I was like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah. What's weird is, I guess, as I've gotten older, and I don't know, but there's a part of me that almost wishes I kind of actually would have stayed in, like, and actually put more dedication actually into the Marine Corps versus all the people that were outside of the Marine Corps, like friends and people at home that I ended up not having great relationships, or not even having relationships with some of them at all. Period. Now, right? And just looking back at how much I was more still always like, oh damn, I got to go home this weekend. I'm gonna go home this weekend because I was too close to base, and it was just so easy. But looking back at it, I'm like, gosh, damn, man, I could have been a better Marine. And I feel like I wish I would have put more into it because I don't know. I feel like I was just too worried about everything else, and I feel like that altered away a lot of my decisions in life. It was based on what other people were doing, or what other, it wasn't based on what I kind of really, I thought maybe I wanted to do. I think I always was just more geared up. Oh, my friends are back home. This is comfortable. I know this place, instead of stepping out of my comfort zone and trying something different. I just kind of went right back to what I knew as comfort. And it to me, it didn't end up taking me down the path that I wanted to go down, which probably led to a lot of different things. But I think it took me 20 something years to finally figure all that out. Like, a lot of this, I was just literally driven by other folks. And I put too much time invested and too much time into other people versus investing time in myself.
Yeah. So you said you were close to home. Where were you stationed?
So I was at Camp Pendleton. So I was, right there in Oceanside. And I lived up north, a little north in a town called Palmdale, the Antelope Valley. So I was probably like a 2 hour drive home, 2.5 hour drive home. One of my other buddies that was in the barracks, um, he lived in Palmdale too. So that dude would catch a ride with me, and so we constantly would go home and still go hang out with the friends, and kind of do the same thing. I didn't allow myself to get out of the rut. I didn't go um embrace the experience.
Mm,
I kept going back to what I was comfortable with, but I think that sometimes being uncomfortable, it makes you have to do something or get yourself in a different position, or make you want to get comfortable, right? So yeah, that's one of my biggest advice probably to younger people is do what you want to do, right? Like,
mm.
there's a point in your time where that's going to run out, and you're going to look back in time and live yourself and like, gosh, I wish I could, I wish I would have, but while you're young, take advantage of those type of opportunities. But do you have any more to say basically on your military experience?
Nothing that is coming to mind.
Okay, so now that you got out, man, and what ended up, you know, bringing you to the path of, a nonprofit? And,
Yeah.
let's talk about
So
all about the nonprofit now.
I was doing security consulting. I feel like a lot of Marines find themselves doing that, and
Yeah.
just kind of traveling around and doing protection work. And I had a business partner who was a Marine, and in 2009, very unexpectedly, he shot himself lethally, and no one saw it coming. No one understands it to this day. Really charismatic, personable individual. Everyone loved him. So that that annoyed me. Certainly that happened, but also that I didn't understand it. And so I ended up finding a job in suicide prevention, working for another nonprofit. And I sold my companies, and with the intention of working in
Hold on, dude. You're muted. You're muted still. There you go.
My mic keeps cutting out, so if that keeps happening, I'm gonna switch to a hard line.
Okay.
One more time, I'll do a quick change up. Do you have the ability to edit this, or is all this just going to go in raw like it is?
I pretty much go raw with it. I mean, once you start editing it, then it gets all crazy and cut up. But I mean, it's not that bad. People could always, up speed it.
Yeah. Look at this guy trying to fiddle around with his micro.
Up there it goes. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and. Hold on. All right, we're back.
All right, sorry about that. I was having some technical difficulties, so now I'm switched to my airline pilot headset here. Now I look like
looking good.
Bringing it in at 60,000 feet, and put your tray tables up, and don't forget to tip your waitress. All right.
I'm taxing you out, bro.
So I was gonna work in suicide prevention for like 3 years, maybe, to get this organization kind of lined out with their veteran operation piece, and then go back to being self-employed somewhere. And what I discovered, I never saw this coming, but what I discovered is that it really played into a lot of my skills, and it was something that I really enjoyed working on for a lot of reasons. It's all day, every day problem solving. I never have a boring conversation. I get to have the experience of having a purposeful impact on the landscape, and I feel like I'm, helping keeping people in the game and bringing it back to the table that otherwise might not be. But then also, what I find really fascinating about suicide, the topic generally, is that it's woefully under researched for a lot of reasons. And so we really know very, very little about it in a data rich environment. It's incredible how little we know about suicide. As a for instance, if you ask, someone how many veterans kill themselves in a given day, often you hear the number 22, right? That gets thrown around a lot. And if you ask the VA, they'll say it's 17 and a half. Because,
just recently they're celebrating.
Yeah. And what's funny about that is they're totally full of shit,
right?
Because we at the end of the day, we have no idea how many veterans kill themselves in a given day.
And because for one, they don't even got 100% of the data collected. There's not even 100% of veterans, even a lot, especially even Vietnam veterans that aren't even in the system. Period.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is when a death investigator goes to investigate a death, there's no database to plug that person's name into to identify whether or not they're a veteran, right? And if it's not a clear-cut suicide, like clear-cut with a suicide note and everything else, it's probably going to be ruled an accidental death by the coroner. And so a lot of our accidental deaths are suicides, not to mention a lot of our overdoses are suicides. A lot of our car accident fatalities are suicides due to, erratic driving behaviors. So there's a ton of deaths that aren't attributed to suicide that are. And just as it is, just with the data that we have, if you add up all the people who die of war, terrorism, and murder in a given year, it will not equal the number of people who kill themselves. So it's a huge issue that needs to be addressed. I think it needs to be talked about more. It's a little bit taboo to discuss, and I think it needs to be talked about more. It goes back to what we were talking about not wanting to feel weak or appear weak, and it takes a person to have the courage to say, yeah, I am impacted mentally and physically by the experiences that I've had, and it's certainly positive experiences, but there's negative outcomes to these things. It's a double-edged sword. It always is, and people don't want to acknowledge those negative outcomes of those experiences.
Yeah, unfortunately, through the years, mental health has been associated with weakness, right? And so that's why a lot of our veterans, I think, struggle to come to the realization or admittance that they got something mentally going on because of the taboo that's always been associated with mental health, right?
Yeah.
Eh,
Yeah,
eh,
absolutely.
but it's a different world that when you're experiencing and PTSD comes in different forms. There's a lot of people that never seen a day on the combat zone that got PTSD issues. They suffer stuff from their childhood trauma, things of those kind of things. I mean, there's a lot of things associated with it, but for veterans, that's the thing. I think that the military should be a little bit more responsible with handling, and I can't speak for today, right? I do know some stuff. I do know that they're getting better, but I don't know that obviously we're not tackling it because it's still happening too often, and that number can spike up into the 40s, on any given day, right? It's just that I feel that I hate putting a number on it in general at all, because then what happens is like the VA goes, "Hey, it's not 22 anymore, it's 17 days. Yeah, we're going in the right direction." So then everybody starts to say, "Oh, you know what? I think mental health we got a handle on it. It's coming down, because if you're looking at just that kind of data from a group that's obviously probably hitting maybe 60% when the data is collected, maybe if you're on a lucky uh, data collection, that they even get 60% of what's absolutely out there. But I think it leaves a lot of misconception when we start to put numbers on it and really start saying, it's this number, it's this number. I think it's okay to associate it so people could understand, like when you put things into a number, when you're like, oh man, around this many people. But when we start celebrating and labeling it, it's hard because when it goes down or whatever, then people start to say, oh, we're winning. We might be on a certain day or a certain month, but that doesn't necessarily mean we've tackled suicide prevention.
Yeah, far from it. It's under researched, it's under resourced, and it's organizations like the VA like to pretend that they're doing something effective when at the end of the day they're not, and they know they're not. That's what's really troubling is they know that their methods are ineffective, but they're it's like steering a ship. They're really slow to change. They're slow to adjust, and there are certainly individuals within the VA system, the mental health system, who are well intentioned and doing the right thing and trying to, but the administration, the organization as a whole, is extremely antiquated, and it's a dinosaur in the 21st century, just lumbering through, and it's an absolute bull in a china shop in terms of trying to actually accomplish anything. And it's devastating how ineffective they are.
Well, I think the problem that we're starting to run into a little bit, bro, is it's getting saturated. And what I mean by that is that you got the people that don't necessarily really have something going on, but they want to tell themselves that. So they're literally taking up spots of people that are really going through it. And I hate to ever like undercut and try to say like, oh, people's mental health don't matter. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying though is we do have people that are literally abusing the system, right? To get out of work, to get out of this, to get out of that, because they're what it boils down to is they're kind of lazy and they don't want to do other things. They want everything given to them. So that's the problem I think that we run into, and because now the VA can't even keep up with the mental health part. They have to start outsourcing to other mental health, which like if so for instance, we're with Kaiser. You go to their mental health department, they're so booked up. They have to outsource their mental health department to other folks. I mean, we're starting to run into an epidemic now of mental health problems, not just from the veteran part, but on the everybody everyday people part, right? So it's getting to a level of they're going to have to start, we're going to probably need more people in the mental health industry, or somehow we need to learn how to get a handle on this into a way that we can start getting to the ones that just sincerely are suffering bad and need it, and I don't know how we even, rate that this person deserves it more than this person. But I think that doing these nonprofits, and we have a lot out there now, is kind of the cushion, at least an area that people can rest in and start feeling safe, or start getting maybe some kind of support in the meanwhile, while the VA is getting themselves caught up and all that stuff. Right. Like I really think that nonprofits are a very good cushion between the veterans and the actual VA.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brian, I hate to do it, but I need you to pause this for a minute.
Yep. And we're back.
Yeah. So to your point about resources for veterans, look, it's a really complex issue, and so the VA, like I said, parts of it are good, other parts aren't. The VA has a I don't know. Let's look it up right now. I've looked this up recently, but let's make sure my information is current. VA budget for 2024. I think it's 377. No, it's larger. So it's a $406 billion healthcare organization. So that makes it the most well-funded healthcare organization in the history of our species, and they're sitting on top of the highest rate of suicide in the history of our species. Okay, so at some point, it doesn't add up. So I recently read an article where the VA was spending $1 billion to build a housing facility in Los Angeles for veterans. So on its face, okay, great, cool. Sounds like a great plan. They're building this facility for veterans, right? And then you kind of read on, and you learn that pays for 1,200 units. Okay, well, what is 1 billion divided by 1,200, right? So those are $833,000 a piece housing units. You've been in VA facilities. Do you think that these are going to be $800,000 apartments? I have a feeling they're not. I have a feeling they're going to be a little less,
Yeah, I literally just walked through a Calvet homing facility to go look into possibly volunteering, and it's not that big of a facility, man, and it was very hospital-like, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't get to go through the entire facility, but I could imagine that's a lot of money to put into one unit.
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, I think there are a lot of pallets of dollars falling off the truck, into someone's bank account. And another thing that the VA does is really interesting is they give out grants to veterans serving nonprofits, which again, on its face, sounds like a pretty good idea. We actually considered putting in for one of these grants, but we ultimately did not, because what we discovered is one, they own all of your intellectual property once they give you this grant, and
Wow.
two, they dictate how you do business. So I know of a nonprofit in my area that is there. I hold them up as the example of a nonprofit doing it right. They're delivering effective modalities of mental health care to veterans in ways that they need it, in ways that others aren't. The VA is not. So they found a gap, they're filling it, and it's effective. Now they took this grant, and now this organization is being overhauled from the ground up and being turned into a much less effective organization, where they're doing things that they have absolutely no business getting involved in, and they're being rendered much less effective than they were prior to taking this VA grant. So we talked about resource scarcity. It is and it isn't. So if you're trying to get mental health from the VA, you're going to be on the wait list, sometimes for months. I work with people who are in acute mental crises, who are told that they have to wait months to get an appointment, right? But then there are a lot of really effective, good veteran serving organizations who are trying to get veterans involved and who aren't filling up. And so it's about finding the resource that's right for you and that's available. And that's one of the things that we do is we talk to individuals about their needs, and then we find the resource that's right for them. And we have a pretty good handle on the resources available so that we can find something where they can do something this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, important that, especially us younger veterans, um, as we get older, bro, we're gonna definitely be needing more and more of, these facilities, things like that. So it behoove us to like really make sure that before we have to be, put into one of these places, that it would be a place that you'd be comfortable spending out the rest of your life with as well, right? Because I've gone into one, and I thought it was, it was a decent little setup. They were playing bingo and stuff, and I thought I was like try to go in there and volunteer and thinking this is, you know, I'm a veteran wanting to volunteer. It should be relatively easy. They made it seem like, yeah, I couldn't really volunteer. They sent me out with a huge catalog packet to go fill out to just go have a conversation. I was just literally like, I'll sit next to the guy and just have a talk. I don't, if you guys got to do fingerprints for that, fine. Like, but the way they made it seem like, oh, well, they don't really need people to come over here and just like talk to them. I'm like, oh, that's odd. All right, well, okay. Well, I was under the impression that our older veterans, especially the ones that are in these homes, like their families sometimes don't even live around here. So I thought it was kind of odd that volunteering was so hard to do there. I'm not done, but I was just, and I still got this paperwork to fill out, but I'm just like, I thought it would be a little easier to just go and volunteer at a Calvet home, assistant living place. I thought it would be pretty easy, but no.
Yeah, they like to perpetuate the myth that you have to have some kind of special um, ominous dominus
Talent. Yeah.
talent. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
someone needs to be sign off, and you have to invest in some type of a degree field and have all this training and everything just to be a friend. And
Yeah,
you
that's what he was like. He's like, "What do you specialize in? Do like?" And I'm like, "Well, shoot, man, name something." He's like, How are you doing gardening?" I was like, "I garden. Yeah, I can gardening." I mean,
yeah,
it was just kind of odd that me wanting to just go talk to my fellow veterans, that I felt like I want them to understand, especially there's a lot of Vietnam veterans I saw, because at this facility they had all the pictures of everybody and what branch they were and what war they were a part of. Those type of things were all on the wall, so I was like totally getting to check it out. And um, a lot of Vietnam veterans up there, right? And older veterans. I want them to know that this generation cares still about them, and I appreciate everything that they've done, that they're not forgotten about, that they're not just, oh, here in this facility and they're just, they're off by themselves. I want them to know that people that of my age still appreciate and respect everything they've done, and like want them to understand, like, I am more than happy to have, so I'm conjuring up a idea, and I think what I might do is take my podcast in there, right? And have one of them actually be the host, right? And have their own show inside there, and I'll just be their co-host and just help them out through the show. And I'll do all the production part, do all this thing, set it up for them so they can see it, and then I'll launch it for them and all that kind of stuff. And they can interview others inside the facility, because I think it's important for us to capture a lot of these stories. I've just recently came across this one podcast that had World War II veterans out there, which there's not a lot of them left, and they're talking about D-Day and all this stuff. And I'm captivated, man, because when I went to the Marine Corps, one thing they teach us a lot about is history, right? And the people that came before us, to have appreciation for the blood shed and life lost, through history. And now we get to kind of hear these stories, and I want to get out all these stories because there's so many of them. Everybody has a story, right? Even if you didn't deploy. and you just served at some faucet, you're gonna have stories. You spent 4 years, 2 years in the military, you're gonna have stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the podcast is an incredible idea. I think I'm really glad that you and others like you were doing these podcasts, and I think it really speaks to our nature as human beings. We're social creatures, you know. And if you think about the most powerful companies around us, like Apple, Microsoft, Facebook. I mean, less so now, but you know, they certainly were super successful in their time. Even Amazon, they got their start selling books, right? These are all communications companies.
Yeah.
And you know, and you look at podcasts like you know, the big shining castle on the mountain is Joe Rogan, right? He's putting up Super Bowl numbers, right?
Yeah,
Just
killing it.
having a one-on-one conversation.
Yep.
So it's there's no mystery. We crave interpersonal communication and interaction as a species. And then you've got these organizations like, you know, there's a lot of them who want to put up barriers between people and
Right.
separate them and force them to be credentialed and create all these reasons why we can't be connected. And
Mhm.
we have a crisis of isolation in our society and really in our species, and we're dealing with a technology and equipment and an environment that is unprecedented in our multi-million year history as a species, and we're trying to adapt to that. We're an organism that's in a non-permissive environment. We're a fish out of water here, and people are getting sick, and they're killing themselves, and they're not thriving, and they're struggling, and we need to come together. We need to be together. I hear a lot of talk about climate change, and here's the deal. uh sure, fine, but at the end of the day, we're not going to live long enough for climate change to kill us if we don't deal with our isolation issues, if we don't deal with the division that's happening between all of us. And we have put people in power who are incentivized to divide us.
Oh, hell yeah.
And
Couldn't agree more, bro.
we need to get in front of that. We need to focus on the things we have in common, not the few things that separate us. And I think Dr. Seuss really hit the nail on the head with his book. It sounds really silly, but it's the truth. He wrote a book called Sneetches, and there's a character in that named Millie McMonkey McBean. And what he does is he takes a community and he starts dividing them and dividing them and dividing them and dividing them until they're warring with each other. And he just sits there and soaks up the profit. And I think we need to put our 600-page textbooks down and pick up a simple child's book by Dr. Seuss and wrap our head around that concept, because we vote for these people. We put them in power, we lionize them, and
Yeah,
we cultivate the system that is killing us, literally.
dude, 100%, bro. I mean, I'll go as far as we've taken everything, like even just for America, right? We're 50 different states, and but we all operate one nation under God, and we have one flag, right? But when you go from one state line to another state line, you could literally go to completely different laws. You know, one state you can go buy weed, in another state you can go to jail for years, you know, for having a gram of it, right? So there's we've always put ourselves into lines or labeling or teams, things that create division. Like sports have created a lot of division too. People literally hate each other over a sports team that they root for, right? People are killing each other over colors, you know, whether you're wearing this color or that color. um you're on the wrong street, you know. I mean, we as humans have put ourselves in a world of division, and also it comes down to a lot of greed, right? And everybody wants to be that superhuman badass, like I'm just the leader of the world, and we've always just been power hungry, right? And that shows definitely when you go in the Middle East, you cut off one head, boom, three others grow. There's just because everybody wants greed, they want power, and we've created that culture a lot too by basically putting so much pressure on us as a society that like this is what wealth looks like, this is what poor looks like. They've literally got us all thinking that you're pretty much nothing if you don't got money type shit. Like you can't have fun. You're not entitled to stuff if you don't got money, right? Like we've done this to us as a human race. But it's gotten uglier, and I feel like 2020 has totally perpetuated the whole problem and created another way to cause division, right? Vax versus non-vaxxed. The stay at home, the non-stay at homes, you're rude, you're not thinking about nobody else, or it's just crazy. Religion, politics, all those things become about screw thy neighbor because they're
Yeah,
not like me. They don't got what I got.
yeah,
They're not
absolutely.
wearing what I got.
And it was really incredible you brought up 2020. It's a great point because prior to that, you could make assumptions about a person's politics or political leanings or religious leanings or what football team they affiliate with. You can make assumptions about that, but you didn't really know. And
Sure.
then pandemic hits and boom, you're walking into a room and you're making a political statement whether you want to or not. Either you're wearing a mask and you're making a statement, or you're
Yeah.
not wearing a mask and you're
Right.
making a statement. And now you don't have a choice. And it's literally on your face. And so it was absolutely a super effective tool for dividing people and creating more divisiveness and more division and more conflict. And we have got to get on the other side of that. We, at the individual level, we don't need Big Brother or some type of leader coming down and doing this for us and forcing us to do this. We as individuals, every single one of us, hold a responsibility to build community around us, to be compassionate to the person who's sitting across from me. So I'm going to tell you a little story, Brian, if I could.
Sure.
I when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was phobic of human beings. I was afraid of them. We can call it whatever we want to call it, but at the end of the day, I was afraid of people because I had so many people try and kill me. My organism, my brain was like, humans are dangerous. You stay
Right.
away from those things, right?
Sure.
So I was in a coffee shop, and there was a lady in front of me, and she was really bubbly and friendly, and she was talking to the barista, and she was really bubbly and friendly, and they were having a lovely time just chitty chatting and everything else. And she got her coffee and she moved on, and then it was my turn, and I came up to the front of the line, and I watched this barista, this young woman. I watched her complete demeanor change. The smile fell off of her face. She became super jaded, super serious, almost kind of rude. And I had a completely different interaction with her. And that's when I realized the world's not full of assholes. I'm the asshole. The world is mirroring my behavior. They're mirroring what I'm putting out into the world. Because she wasn't jaded. She wasn't mean. She was a happy person. I was. I was the mean, jaded, angry person. And she just mirrored that for me.
Mhm.
So the world will give us what we put into it, and we have got to become more compassionate about our fellow travelers.
Yeah, there's a couple of things for me, right? I think we're playing too much politics, and we are starting to lose that we the people. We're starting to forget that, and we're putting too much faith into one human being or one party, right? And we're let them sort it out. That's the level we'll just let them all sort it out. Well, there when especially when you come into our government and you got people that could sit there for 20 plus years, at some point in time, they start to not work for we the people anymore, and they start working for the government, right? And now it's all government. Just look at any organization that starts to be successful. I promise you, the government will put their hands into it somewhere or another and put some kind of regulation and say, nope, this is how you need to do it. TikTok, for instance, they really want TikTok in their hands because they can't control the algorithm to that right now. They don't got the algorithm rights. They got the algorithm rights to Facebook because they got Zuckerberg and scared Zuckerberg enough to push him into a corner. And to me, it's pretty much ruined Facebook by allowing our government to get their hands into it as much as they have. But that's just how our government works because we're allowing that too, right? We're not fixing the situation, and we've allowed them to put so many laws into place that we can't even fight tyranny anymore without being called a domestic terrorist or some sort. So we're putting ourselves as humans, and we're allowing them to do this, and we've allowed it for years and years to get to a point where we're putting ourselves into a corner. And I mean, if we don't start doing something pretty fast, we may repeat nasty parts of our past. And we shouldn't be going that way. We should be heading in a different direction. Why we're still dealing with 100-year problems today is beyond me, bro. How we can't be mature enough or be good enough as human to get past certain things that we just can't get past. It's crazy to me because we don't want to move on. We don't want to move on. We don't want to move forward. We're not going to make a better place if we keep living in a place that was ugly. We're adding on to the ugliness.
Yeah.
Instead of handing over the next generation a better place, we're fucking it up more for them, right?
100%.
So, and I feel that each generation owes it to the next generation to make it a better place. Because don't you want your kids, your grandkids, their grandkids, and so on to have a great life? I don't feel like my kids are getting the childhood that I had in the 80s or the 90s. It's not as free to just go outside and play and stuff. Now we got to worry about shootings and kids getting picked up and all kinds of weird, crazy things that like the kids can't be kids anymore. They're relying on technology to entertain them because everybody's scared to send their kids out to places and do things and go outside and ride your bike. I'm afraid because there's careless humans out there that ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the only way this will ever get fixed is by everybody coming together and saying, you know what, gosh damn, we've been played.
Yeah.
Get out. We got to wake up to some of this stuff and say, you know what, man, we're getting played.
Yeah. And we have to own our participation in getting
we're the
played
pawns.
Too,
we're the pawn pieces. We're not the ones controlling that. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. The government is not supposed to government us and make us, and we're not supposed to live by the government rules and laws. We're the ones that make that.
Yes.
But you know what? We're going to worry about something going on way over here, and while they're just over here changing laws, putting laws in places that we get stuck with. And once you go forward with certain things, sometimes you can't turn it back, and now you got to adapt to that new way. And I feel like I said, for me, 2020 was the biggest reset that we've faced in years, where they've changed a lot of things, the way a lot of business and things were done and the way they're going. It really pushed us into the technology era super fast.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like robots, kiosks, all those AI, all these things. And every day they're getting better with it. Because it's just, with technology advances so fast. We're on a roller coaster ride, bro, that I don't even know if we can even put the brakes on it anymore. It's almost like we're just on a roller coaster ride that ain't going to stop.
Well, it's what we do with it. It's like surfing. You just got to stay above the wave, and
Yep.
and you got to acknowledge the good. So let's talk about the good in technology. Look at this interaction we're having right now, right?
There's great things, yeah.
There's in our lifetime, not long ago, what we're doing right now wasn't possible. And
Right.
now here we are, we've got a low latency video feed and the ability to communicate, and then the ability to put this information out to whomever wants to consume it, right? So hey, so there's a positive, and I don't have to enumerate the negatives that come along with these types of technologies. We know all about those.
There's
So
good and bad, but you know what? Humans have the tendency to turn something good into bad.
they do. So it's what do we do with it, right?
Yeah.
You could take a hammer and you can build a house,
Right.
or you could go on a rampage, you kill a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
It's how do you use the tool, what do you do with it? And we've got to be mature adult people, and interact with our technologies and our tools in an appropriate manner, and not use them to create more negativity, more division, and more bullshit in the world.
100%, bro. All right, man. Well, to switch it up a little bit, let's talk more about your nonprofit, the Combat Recovery Foundation. What led you to it? What got you going? And let's talk all about it, man. Let's talk about that now.
Yeah,
Switch it up a
thanks.
little bit. Yep.
So I worked for a nonprofit for a while doing the suicide prevention thing. I intervened in over 300 suicidal crises, and I discovered that it was something I really liked doing. I came up with a project to get upstream of the suicide, and the idea was to go into ROTC school or classes, and teach ROTC students about suicide prevention, and so that they have the skills that they need up front prior to the beginning of their military experience. And it got shut down. It got shut down by the nonprofit that I worked for because it was a multi-state project. So that, plus some other frustrations, led me to starting my own nonprofit, because I discovered that this is something I want to stick in and continue doing. And I felt like I had some solutions, and so I'm here to put them into play. So we identified the gaps, we identified the resources to fill those gaps, and that's what we do. So we have three primary services, and that is coaching and peer support. We do community building adventures and experiences and events for people, and then communication and education, and that's part of what I'm doing right now. So we have a whole website overhaul coming. We're under a year old, and this was just set up as a placeholder. And I've currently got a great guy out of Texas. His name is Lukian, and he's overhauling this website for me. And so we're going to have a virtual memorial, where if you lost someone to suicide, you can put a memorial up for them on our website. We're going to have a calendar of events. We're going to have the ability to sign up for resources. And so we've got a lot more functionality coming for the website. And so the idea is to identify effective suicide prevention tools and to enact those. Yeah. That's what we're up to. So it's Combat Recovery Foundation. You can find us at combatrecoveryfoundation.org. And my cell phone is listed on the website. I might have to take that down at some point if it becomes an issue, but it hasn't up to this point. So you can literally just call me directly. You can shoot me an email. My name is Marshall, MARSHALL, at combatrecoveryfoundation.org. And if you are struggling, or you know somebody that's struggling, give us the opportunity to help out, because we've got a lot of resources for people, and we've had a lot of success in the past. And if we hit an obstacle, at the end of the day, I'm a Marine. I'm going to assault through that problem, and I'm going to find a solution.
So kind of run us through, if someone was, seeking who would be seeking out your guys' foundation?
Yeah, so it's individuals who are struggling to adjust after having a near-death experience at the hands of another person. So, when I was in Iraq, people tried to blow me up. I got shot at by snipers all the time, because, it's really easy to tell who the canine handler is in a group of Marines. He's the guy with the dog attached to him, right?
Right.
So I came out of the experience was like, human beings are dangerous, and that's a natural reaction to having a near death experience. And so it occurs to me that our people who serve our communities in uniform are and put their lives on the line for strangers are the most compassionate among us, and we're living in a dispassionate time. And so we need as many compassionate people to be involved as possible. But as a result of their service, often they get harmed and they get burnt out and they become phobic of human beings. And I don't want to put that label on anybody. I'm just saying that's what it was for my journey, And so it's about creating an opportunity for those people to come back and be a part of the conversation, bring them back to the table, bring them back into the fold. Our core values are unrelenting kindness, the courage to do and say the right thing regardless of the consequences, diligent self-improvement, authenticity, and the pursuit of resilience. And we're here to help people navigate their way back to the table, to stay in the game, and at the end of the day, to just to be better today than you were yesterday. That's the goal.
Nice. That's outstanding. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk all about this stuff. And it's not always easy to get in front of a camera and talk about your experiences. And but I appreciate you, brother. Nonprofits are a lot of work that goes behind it. It's being very selfless still, and you're still serving some capacity, bro. And and so that's amazing. Do you have any last words, any last things you want to say? Maybe you didn't bring something up, opportunity, kind of have your last words.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank you for creating this conversation and creating this communication opportunity. I'm extremely proud of you as a Marine that you're doing what it takes to ensure that our veterans and our citizens and everybody going forward has a better time of it than those who came before us. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take every single one of us doing our little piece to ensure that we live in a healthier and safer society. And I'll tell you what, Brian, we live in a target-rich environment for improvement.
Absolutely. A lot of room for improvement. That's for sure. Once again, brother, I appreciate you. And this is more than just you or a guest, bro. Definitely want to make sure we exchange information, keep in contact, put you in touch with other people, add you to the website as well, get as much visibility. Have you join my Facebook group if you're on Facebook to make sure you can start adding all your information in there as well. It's a place for everybody to post. It's basically just a great place for resources, really. But once again, Marshall, thank you so much, brother. And we'll stay in contact.
Absolutely. Semper Fidelis, brother.
Semper Fi, bro. Well, all right, fans. It's going to be another great episode, another great interview. Check out his foundation, guys. Give it a look. These guys out here that do these nonprofits are still out there wanting to serve, wanting to help. Obviously, that takes money. It takes time. Please, if you have a little bit extra ends, consider donating to these great foundations that are out here still kind of bridging that gap between the VA and the veteran. So hope you guys are all having an amazing day out there. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, guys, we'll see you guys.